Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Until Jacksonville podcast. I am your host, Andrew Main. Been a little bit since the last recording. It's been just over a week. Sorry about the delay. End of last week was very hectic for me. Didn't get the chance to put a podcast out. And so didn't get to give my preview of last week's games. So I'm going to break down some of the games that happened last week, kind of talk about some of my thoughts going into it, what I expected. Some of these I would have been on the money. Some of these I would have been wrong. So I guess we're just going to have to trust in my integrity when I talk about what my predictions were going to be, already knowing the results as I'm talking about them. But I'm going to talk about those Week 6 games. I'm going to talk about this absolutely loaded slate of Week 7. I don't even think I'm going to be able to get to all the games that I would like to talk about just for the sake of time. And there's only being so many games I can really talk about without my throat just giving out on me. So I'm going to give it my best shot. Going to talk about all these games tonight, and let's just jump right into it. So the Week 6, a few of the games that I was going to break down. Obviously, the Georgia game, as I do every week, that is the game that I am most locked into, most dialed into, and the most just excited to watch, obviously. Georgia hosted Kentucky. Didn't really expect a whole lot different than what ended up happening. I thought Georgia would probably control the game, which is what they did. I would say all 4 quarters they controlled it. I believe the first real true backups that I saw playing in the game was about 2 or 3 minutes left in the third quarter. It was kind of everyone could see this game was already out of hand. Georgia did a good job of starting very solid. Felt like they scored almost every single drive when the ones were in. They had a couple drives that didn't end in touchdowns, but for the most part, did really good. I think the run game was great. I think Dylan Bell had an absolutely great game. The way that they used him both on the ground and in the air, I think was very creative. And he kind of had a breakout game, almost similar a little bit to at Tennessee in 2023 when he really had his big breakout game of his career. And he has kind of just been on the roster this season, hasn't really popped off until this week. He had a huge week. I think Carson Beck did a much better job this week of reading zone coverage, but also fitting the ball into tight windows. I think his biggest Achilles heel until this point in the season was whenever he'd be going against zone coverage, I've talked about this a lot, is his eyes were where they needed to be, but he just didn't trust it. He just didn't trust himself, and he would result in either running the ball, taking a sack, or he would dump the ball off to his running back, try to get ahead of the chains. But when you have a 20-yard route open in zone coverage, you need to rip that. And I think he did a much better job of that. Threw his first interception of the season, which I was kind of just almost hoping for, because that showed me that he's trying to push the ball downfield. He did consistently in the game, had one bad interception. I think he made the wrong read on that play. I see what basically the play that he ran, he had a seam up the left hash, and typically against cover 3 zone, which is what they were going against there. Usually that's going to be open, but the middle field safety was pretty far on that left hash, and he would have had Oscar Delp down the left sideline if he would have seen it. But I think he probably just kind of made that decision before the play. But at least he was pushing the ball downfield. So everything that's all from Georgia, it was good. It was encouraging. There was nothing that I was super concerned about watching except injuries. Offensive line did get pretty banged up. Missed our left tackle for most of the game, which from what I've heard, he should be able to play this next week. Had our left guard go out for a little bit, Micah Morris. So we had some struggles with injuries with Monroe Freeling, with Micah Morris. So luckily, those guys should be able to go this week. Even Ernest Green, our right tackle, who's been out most of the season so far, he should come back against Auburn, so I'll get to that game later. But overall dominance by Georgia, and I would have picked them there. And the flip side, I'll be honest, this is the game that I would have been completely wrong about. Number 9, Texas went to Florida, to the Swamp. And I did not think that Florida would win this game. And it's funny because in the preseason, I talked about this before a little bit. My dad and I, we made a spreadsheet of every single SEC football game, all SEC team schedules, all 16 of them, and picked game by game on how all these games are going to finish for these teams. With Florida's schedule, we had them beating USF, so they let us down there, I guess. But after that, we predicted them. We both predicted LSU to lose at LSU, to lose at Miami. Those weren't really big shockers to me, but for some reason, we convinced ourselves that Florida would beat Texas. So preseason, I technically got this right. But if you would have asked me last week, I would have 100% picked Texas. Preseason, my thought process was, okay, they get a couple losses. Everything is down. College football is weird. Sometimes teams just really bounce back. And that's what happened. I thought that they played with a lot of fire. I thought they played energetic. I think defense is still really good. They gave Arch Manning a really tough time. And honestly, when I went back and watched it, I thought Arch Manning played pretty admirably. He played well. I think he had a good day overall given his circumstances. One, he struggled. There were some drops where he had a deep shot, a couple that he missed, but a couple that he hit a guy and they just dropped it. But also, one thing is his left guard especially, but the offensive line in general played horrible. But that left guard especially was getting beat every single play. So he was constantly getting sacked. The run game wasn't working for them. And I mean, that offensive line is just not very good right now. And give Florida credit because they do have a really good defense, but it wasn't enough in my opinion. One of my notes, and see, it's funny because this game is not one that I watched in real time because on Saturday I had a wedding to attend at 4 p.m. So a lot of those 3:30 games I wasn't able to watch live in the moment. So usually the games that I miss, I'll go back and just kind of watch the highlights for. This is one a couple nights ago. I took the time to watch the full game just so I had a really good understanding of exactly what happened, not just kind of watching the highlights. My notes from this was obviously what I hit on. Texas' offensive line was terrible, especially the left guard. Arch played pretty well, all things considered, and didn't have a couple deep touchdown misses, so that hurt him. But the biggest question, I guess, this is really for Steve Sarkisian, is where was the quick game? I thought that, and very similar to when they played Georgia last year in Austin, it felt like the quarterback, whether it was Quinn or Arch, they were both getting sacked so often and so quickly. And so you would think they'd try to give them short, quick, easy answers, but they were still 3-step drop. Every single route is ran at 10, 15, 20 plus yards downfield. And by the time the guys are looking for the ball, the quarterback's already on the ground. And they kind of started with some quick game stuff early in this game to really get Arch going, which I thought was good. But then they went away from that. And really, especially that second half, felt like every time he dropped back to pass, it was 1, 2, 3 hitch, he's getting sacked. And just did not have time to push the ball downfield, so he should have been taking a lot more stuff underneath, because even though Florida was ahead this whole game, there was still a lot of this game where you felt like Texas could at any point flip a switch and come back in this game, because there was plenty of time and it was still a very close game. Even though it felt like Florida was up by 30, they would be up by 10 or 13. And Texas just didn't really take advantage of that, in my opinion. Another note I had on this, I think Florida's offense played really great in the first half. I think they got a little conservative at times. I think right before halftime, they had 3 straight run plays, and I believe there was a penalty, and they ended up, so one of those plays got called back, and then they ran another run play, and the entire stadium was booing. I thought you had a chance to try to go down the field, see if we can get an extra 3. There was still a good bit of time, but they got a little bit conservative to me. But the run game was very good. I mean, this was the first game all year that they really fed Jaden Baugh. And I've been saying all season for Florida, if you want to try to find a way to win a game, feed Jaden Baugh. He had 27 carries for 107 yards, a little over about, I guess, right around 4 yards a carry, almost on the dot. So I think he played really well. I think a lot of that, the numbers would look better. Second half, the defense on Texas did a much better job of stalling him, not letting him get a whole lot. He had a lot of rushes for either no gain or very little gain. But I thought Jaden Baugh, they leaned on the run game. They didn't ask too much of DJ Lagway, which was good. And, I mean, for them, they looked the best that they have all year. And it was really just waiting for that offense to wake up for them. They were able to do enough. They ended up 29-21 was the final. But they were able to do well enough. The defense was playing very solid, and they just played complimentary football. The other note I had was Dallas Wilson, Jeremiah Smith. Now, I know how that sounds. Jeremiah Smith is the best. Last year as a true freshman, he was the best wide receiver in all of college football. Again, this year, he's the best wide receiver in all of college football. But watching him, it just felt like I was watching Jeremiah Smith. And I'm not sure exactly what the measurables are. I don't know if they're about the same height or what that is there. I'm clicking on his profile now. He is listed at 6'3", 213. So I think Jeremiah Smith is right around that 6'3", 6'4", bigger guy as well. I mean, Dallas Wilson looked really good. I think he had one crazy catch on the sideline and kind of turned around. It felt like he had 3 steps that went out of bounds. They reviewed it, and every step was in bounds. I think that was great by him. But he had some high point catches. He just looked really good with the ball in his hands. As a Georgia fan, that's a guy that scares me going forward because obviously in a few weeks we're going to have to play against the Gators. But Dallas Wilson looked really good. Now, one of the people who've been on the podcast with me before, Josh Michael, he was like, so basically if we had Dallas Wilson all year, we'd be a one-loss team. And I was like, okay, slow down just a little bit. We're not going to just give you 2 extra wins because you have a better receiver. What was killing you is DJ Lagway couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and he was making horrible decisions. And you didn't lean on a run game that would have been good. So just because you have a better receiver doesn't mean that those things get fixed automatically. But, however, going forward, I think it really helps having him on the field with you. So if he can continue to play, if DJ Lagway can be healthy, if you can lean on the run game and on your defense, Florida could find a way to win some of these games that they're not supposed to. It felt like in just a matter of 4 quarters, they went from please fire Billy Napier to, okay, I guess we're sticking out for the rest of the year with him. I guess he's safe because he got a top 10 win. And talking to Florida fans going into this game, it was kind of a, do we want to win? It felt like, and I don't think they thought they were going to win, but when I was talking to Kirk and Josh about it, they were like, well, we think either way he's gone. It just is probably a matter of when he's gone. But I don't know. I mean, this is kind of what happened last year where things were going rough and they ended the season good. It wasn't in October. But for Florida going forward, they have a lot of difficult opponents. So I am really interested to see, because they're good enough to beat anyone on their schedule, but they're also bad enough to lose to anyone on their schedule. So they're going to be one of these weird teams that could barely make a bowl game or could be an 8-4 team at the end of the year. I don't know. We'll see. I still think they have a lot more losses coming. Call me biased. I hate Florida a lot. But yeah, I would have been wrong on that game. I did pick Alabama in the Vanderbilt game, but this was gonna be one of those when I was gonna talk about it of, boy, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope Pavia is able to do enough. I really hope this Vanderbilt run game is able to do enough. I hope they're going to be explosive enough. And at the start of the game, it kind of felt like the 5th quarter of the 2024 Vanderbilt-Alabama game. Alabama had a couple good drives. They had a missed field goal. They had a fumble. Vanderbilt was up 7 at the end of the first quarter. Again, this was one of the games going on while I was at a wedding. So I was watching, I pretty much watched the whole second half. I would say last 2.5 quarters at the reception for my phone. But I was keeping up with this game pretty closely. Things were going well for Vanderbilt in that first half. It felt like they had good momentum at times. They were able to find a good rhythm on offense. But then the second half, Alabama's defense really settled in, really limited their passing attack, really limited their run game, and just made things a lot harder on Pavia. Now, Vanderbilt still had some chances late in that game to make something happen, to fight back and catch up, maybe even win the game. Pavia had a couple of late interceptions, I think, just trying to force it, trying to do too much, trying to be a Heisman-type quarterback to come back and beat the Tide 2 years in a row. But Alabama's just firing on all cylinders right now. Their run game looked the best in this game than it has all season so far, in my opinion. I think Jam Miller has really helped that running game. And Ty Simpson is just playing really good quarterback as well, which, again, is going to make things a lot easier as a team when you have a quarterback that's been as good as Ty Simpson has been this year. So Alabama ended up winning that game. I was heavily pulling for Vanderbilt. Now, I will say one thing that I was a little upset about, but also I understand. So late in the game, it was 23-14. It's a 2-possession game, up by 9 points, and Alabama had the ball. I mean, I want to say there was less than 20 seconds left in the game. All they had to do was run the ball one time, and the game's over. And they ran a toss play to Jam Miller. I think it was Jam Miller. And he ran it in for a touchdown to kind of run up the score. I was really sad about it because I thought that Vanderbilt would at least cover in that game. I think they were a 12.5-point underdog, so they would have covered. And then they score a touchdown in the final seconds. I was upset about it. It felt like it wasn't very classy. But also I thought about it, and if Georgia was in the same situation and Pavia was talking trash to us for the last year, I'd run it up too. I get it. I'm upset with Alabama, but I'm not mad about it, I would say. This game I would have been completely wrong on. I was planning on picking Miami to beat FSU. I did not think that it would be as much of a blowout as it was. And if you didn't watch the game, you may be thinking, But Andrew, the final was 28-22. It was a 6-point game. I mean, that's a really close game. When I went to bed, it was 28-3. I stopped watching because I was very tired. A long day, and they were running away with it. Ohio State was blowing out Minnesota, and then Texas A&M was blowing out Mississippi State. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and watch these games. It's just not something that interests me when it's a blowout. I did go back and watch what Florida State did late in that game to come back and score an extra 19 points. To me, it felt like a lot of Miami, okay, we're going to win this game. We're going to lean on a run game, and we're going to let FSU take 10, 12 play drive and just walk down the field slowly and melt all this clock in the fourth quarter. And if they want to do that and they find a way to score a touchdown, so be it. Which, I mean, hey, it worked out. They still won the game. Looked a lot closer in the end, but Miami did dominate this. I saw a lot of people saying that after this game, Miami's the best team in the country. They've looked better than anyone. They've looked really good. I'm not going to say they haven't. But to me, it's just hard to suddenly label them as this top team in the country. We're not really going to know. They did handle business so far this year. They've destroyed USF, who obviously beat Florida. They beat FSU, obviously, and they also got a big win over Florida. But the rest of their schedule is very manageable. And if I were a Miami fan, my concern would be it feels like we're probably going to be able to roll our helmet out on the field and go, I guess, 6-1 in our remaining games. And what kind of sucks for them is they had a bye before the FSU game and after the FSU game. So they're ending the year 7 straight games, last 2 of which are on the road. I believe one of those is at Pitt, and the other one I want to say it is at Boston College or some team like that that's kind of in a cold area of the country. So it's going to be difficult for them, I would say. Maybe Virginia Tech, something like that. They have some ACC team that's above the Mason-Dixon, I believe. But yeah, it's going to be hard for them to continue to play at a high level, I think, due to the competition they're playing. So when they get to the ACC championship game, possibly, when they get to the playoffs, possibly, are you able to just get it going again? I think this hurt Oregon last year. Oregon basically walked through their whole schedule, really had one big game all year. They won that by a point. And then it felt like they coasted the rest of the year because, I mean, they didn't really have hard competition. They just had easy, dominant wins. And then they get the playoff, they have a bye, and then Ohio State smacked them in the face early, and they were not able to come back in that game. So for Miami, they're a team that no one's really going to be paying attention to the rest of the year because they dodge a lot of the teams like Georgia Tech, like Clemson, these other contenders in the ACC. So we'll see how they end up at the end of the year. But it was a good win for them to beat FSU. Sorry, Mom, about that. But hey, Miami found a way to win in Tallahassee, which Alabama couldn't do. So huge win for them. And I did think that Texas A&M was going to beat Mississippi State. Honestly, I thought it'd just be closer. It felt like a very slow build, but Mississippi State just could not get offense going. I think they scored a field goal on their first drive of the game, or maybe second. After that, they just couldn't score the ball. I think Mississippi State did a great job. Texas A&M did a great job of just holding onto the ball, playing good defense, running the ball. I mean, the final score was 31-9. Reuben Owens had an absolute breakout game, 21 carries, 142 yards. Marcel Reed didn't have to do a ton, only 13 for 23, but had 180 on 13 completions, 2 touchdowns. So it felt like this is one of those games when you're a better team in the country. These are the types of games that can sneak up on you, but the good ones win. The bad ones either barely squeak it out in overtime or late in the fourth quarter, or maybe even find a way to lose this game. They won. They controlled the game, really the whole game. It just never felt like Mississippi State could get any offense going. It was hard to watch, honestly. Not going to break that down too much. It was pretty dominant by Texas A&M, even though it's 22-point difference. They were in control of that game, I would say, all 4 quarters, even though it felt like it was sloppy at times. Like I remember at one point, it was like Texas A&M just threw an interception. Mississippi State's going to do something. Never mind, Mississippi State just threw an interception right back. It was just kind of weird at times. But overall, I would say A&M has looked really good. They have a few tests coming this year, but still a pretty manageable schedule overall. So it'd be interesting to see the lookout on them for the rest of the year. So, and another couple games I wanted to mention. Really, I'll just mention this one just to save time. UCLA lost to Penn State. And for anyone who has not followed any UCLA football this year, it was for good reason, because they have been a horrible, horrible football team this season. I'm trying to pull up the stats here. So listen to this. So coming into this game, UCLA, they were 0-4. Not just had they not won a game, they had not had a single lead this whole game. At no point in any of these 4 games they had played had they ever had a lead. They only scored 10 points versus Utah, 23 points versus UNLV, 10 points versus New Mexico, 14 points at Northwestern, and they find a way to score 42 against Penn State, against what everyone thought was a really good defense, against the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league in Jim Knowles. And this is a team who fired their coach a couple weeks ago. Both of their coordinators are fired. They had a former quarterback for them, Neuheisel, taking over as coach. I think he played 10 years ago. I think he's like 30 or 29, something like that. I mean, young guy. He looks like he's still in college. And there were times after the game he talked about how he thought he was talking to the quarterback on the headset and realized that he wasn't because he didn't know what button to push. The offense coordinator at one point, they said a couple points in the game, forgot to call in a play. So then Nico and the offense just had to run a play, just figure it out. I mean, how do you find a way to lose them? And I know Penn State, you lost against Oregon, you played hard, you had them at home, you lost in overtime. It felt like, is this our year finally? I mean, a lot of people projected them to, if you're going to win Natty, you have to do it this year. A lot of people projected them to do so, or at least make a deep run in the playoff, to be one of these best teams in the country. But defense was good as always. You have 2 really good running backs coming back. You got Drew Aller coming back, who has been one of these guys everyone thinks he looks like he's going to be an NFL quarterback one day. He just hasn't developed into that yet. And we're still waiting for him to do that. He still has not done it. His 3rd year starting, I believe, and he is just not playing as good as everyone has projected him to be the past couple years. I don't really know what to expect there. You know, it felt like Penn State. It felt like this was your year. Now you're 3-2, and what are you gonna do? I don't think they beat a Power 4 opponent this season. But Nico Amalevea played a great game in this. 166 passing yards, which isn't crazy. Had a couple of touchdowns. But rushing the ball, had 128 rushing yards, including sacks, on only 16 carries for 3 touchdowns as well. So they just dominated this game. I would say they came out the gate, scored. And it's funny because, like I said, they hadn't had a lead the entire season. 4.5 minutes into the game, they scored their opening touchdown drive, and they led every second of that game remaining. And it felt like late in the game, Penn State's offense finally started going, and you kind of had that feeling like, okay, here it comes. The better team is going to win now. I think it was 27. It was 27-7 at half. And this is, again, one of the games that I was at the wedding trying to keep track of. Because I'm focused on the Vanderbilt-Alabama game. I'm focused on the Texas-Florida game. And I'm just kind of scrolling through scores, and I see 27-7 at half UCLA. And I was looking on the Apple Sports app, and I thought, that can't be right. So then I went to ESPN, and the score was the same. And I went, well, that can't be right. And, I mean, so I had to tune into the game to actually watch it to see there's no way the score is this. And it was. I just thought the apps were all being weird. But I mean, they found a way to just play really sound football. I think Penn State came in just so sloppy thinking, hey, we'll roll our helmet out here and we'll get a win no matter what. But yeah, I mean, there was 27-7 at one point, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Penn State went down, scored a touchdown, made it 27-14. You got some momentum. They end up blocking a punt, and they scoop it up, get a touchdown. Suddenly it's 27-21. All the momentum is Penn State. And when I say momentum, I mean there are like 13 fans in the stands if you watch it. There was no one in that field. It was full. It could have been stormed after that, but it was such a bad field storming because they had no one in there. They literally arrested all of the people who stormed the field and stopped the field storming. That's how bad it was. I mean, I saw videos of security guards chasing down random people, kept tackling them. It was quite funny, but because they had no one at the game. But Penn State had all the momentum. You think, okay, here it comes. The better team's going to find a way to take the lead and win this game. But UCLA just kept responding, and they did a great job of that. I think there was some different kind of time management, things like that, or just it felt like Penn State was outcoached almost, again, by a coaching staff that's just trying to figure it out. It felt like a bunch of fraternity brothers just started coaching the team because they didn't have a coach, and they're just finding a way to win, finding a way to play at a high level, and It's quite hilarious. I had a good time watching it. All right, so that will wrap up my week 6 talk. Gonna move into several games we have here. I believe I have a 3-page of notes. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games to talk about. So I will try not to spend too much time on these, just kind of give my general thoughts here. It was funny. So I don't really normally do this, but I was trying to just kind of be efficient on time, and so I asked ChatGPT to kind of help me with my show notes this week, thinking that it would just save me a few minutes and I can get started on the podcast faster. And from all these games, I think every single stat that it's listing is from last season. In the Georgia game, they're talking about Carson Beck and Hank Brown. In the LSU South Carolina game, they're talking about how Malik Neighbors is heating up and Spencer Rattler has been under constant pressure. Ohio State Illinois game, they're talking about Devin Brown is in full control of the offense. What's going on there? They're talking about Tumaluau and Jack Sawyer on defense. I mean, it's just weird. The Missouri game, they're talking about Brady Cook. Oregon, they're talking about Bo Nix, who hasn't played there in a couple seasons. I mean, this thing was all over the place. It was honestly quite funny just to read through what it was saying. I mean, Oklahoma game, they're talking about Jackson Arnold and Quinn Ewers matching up. And then Florida at Texas A&M, they're talking about Graham Mertz has been solid and conservative and all this stuff. And so if you ever think about doing a podcast, don't just have ChatGPT make your notes and then run off of that. I really thought, maybe it'll give me a couple stats that I should be aware of that maybe I wasn't aware of and stuff. But most of this is normally just I look at the game that I'm talking about and I just talk about. I don't really hit on a ton of notes normally, or I'll write them and normally not even look at them. So anyway, I guess that was a little bit of behind the curtain, but I just thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, matchup this Saturday, Georgia going into Jordan-Hare Stadium, going into the Plains. And historically, this has been a place that Georgia has always seemed to struggle with when playing against Auburn. I think 2023, we struggled, found a way to come back late in that game, leaned on Brock Bowers for the last couple of drives, found a way to win. I think its finals 27-20, if I remember correctly. 2021, we handled it a little bit better, but we had a really good team that year. 2019, we jumped up to a lead, and then late in the game, Bo Nix was playing really well and found a way to climb them out of that hole. And I think we jumped up on them 28-0, and then we lost, or we ended up winning 28-21. So they found a way to come back. If that's the year I'm thinking of, 2019, yeah, I think so. And then 2017, they quote unquote beat the dog crap out of us until we got revenge a couple weeks later in the SEC championship game. Here to kind of talk about this. The biggest things to look at in this game to me, I'll start on, I guess, Georgia's offense. I think this is the biggest question mark in the game is Georgia on offense. They've looked a lot better on offense, but this Auburn defense is really good. Their front seven does a really good job of stopping the run. And Georgia so far this season has been able to run the ball consistently against every team they played, even against Tennessee, even against Alabama, and also obviously against Kentucky. But in this, I don't know if they'll be able to run the ball as consistently as they have been able to earlier this season. I think one thing to be aware of is how young the defense is. I believe they have several players. I think they have like a linebacker, a DB or two, maybe I think another D lineman maybe. I mean, they have several guys who are true freshmen starting on this defense. So they are young, so they could be susceptible here. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's the biggest question mark in the game is if Georgia's able to consistently run the ball and what's Auburn doing defensively. If they've been watching tape at all, they're probably going, okay, let's sit in zone coverage and make Gunnar Stockton just dice us up from inside the pocket. And if he does that, then we lose. Because he hasn't really proven that consistently all season. Again, Kentucky, he did a much better job of doing that, but this is better competition than Kentucky. I think Kentucky is the worst team in the SEC this season. So we'll see how that pans out, but I think Georgia still finds a way to score enough points to end up winning this, because here's why. I am not high on Auburn's offense versus Georgia's defense, really Auburn's offense in general. So I'll read off some stats from the last couple games that Auburn's played. So they played at A&M, which tough place to play. Listen to some of these team stats. Auburn had 9 first downs the entire game. On third down, they were 0 for 13. Fourth down, they were 0 for 2. Total yards, 177. 77 yards all game long. That's horrible. Jackson Arnold, 18 for 33, 3.8 yards a pass. Rushing, they were 24 attempts for 52 yards at 2.2 a carry. I mean, just awful. You may be thinking, okay, that's one game. I'm so glad you asked. Let's pull up the other game that they had against Oklahoma, another game of good competition. Auburn on offense, 3 for 15 on third down, 1 for 3 on fourth down. Total yards a little bit better at only 287 yards of offense. They had Jackson Arnold went 21 for 33, 220 yards, 6.7 yards a attempt. Rushing yards, 35 carries for only 67 yards. That's 1.9 a carry. So Auburn just hasn't looked great offensively this year. I think as I've talked about them in other games this season, I've talked about when they go against really good defensive minds, I go, hey, this is an offense that really leans on pre-snap alignment and adjustments and hopes you don't change anything post-snap. We're going to do an RPO. I'm either going to hand it off or throw this backside slant, and that safety is out of position, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this backside slant. Then as soon as he snaps the play, fakes the handoff, pulls the ball, about to throw it, oh crap, the safety's in the window. Now, what's helped them at times this year is Jackson Arnold has scrambled to get some positive yardage, but that's not going to be able to sustain you for the whole game. And other times, he's forcing the ball, throwing incompletions, maybe throwing interceptions. So they just haven't looked good against good defenses at all. I mean, in the past 2 games they played against SEC competition, they have scored 10 points and 17 points. And even Oklahoma, I think if John Mateer isn't playing with a broken hand, I think they do better on offense and they stay on the field longer. And Auburn's offense is not on the field as much, and they don't even score those 17 points because they just did not look good. It's been hard to watch. But I just think that's the biggest matchup in this is Georgia's offense versus their defense. How does that fare? Does Georgia finish with 3 touchdowns? Do they finish with 31 points? I don't know. I think Georgia secures a somewhat easy win here is what I'm predicting. I feel like it's going to be like a 31-17-ish game. I think Hugh Freeze will find some ways to be creative and to score a couple of drives. In years past when we play them, it seems like that's the time that he goes, hey, I've been saving all these plays all year. Here they go. And, I mean, like in 2023, last time we went there, they really didn't run Peyton Thorne, the quarterback, at all. Robbie Ashford as their backup quarterback, but he was a great athlete. And what they kind of did is that they would put him in the game and he'd run the ball, and then they'd put back in Peyton Thorne. Well, they ended up having a run game with Peyton Thorne against Georgia, and he had like a 60-yard run at one point in that game. And really early in the game, that was kind of the difference of the game was Peyton Thorne's legs. So I do think Hugh Freeze is a good enough offensive mind, and he does hate Georgia enough to go, okay, I'm going to find some ways to be creative here against this Kirby Smart defense. I'm sure there's things on tape that he's seen from Alabama and other teams that he's going to go, okay, they did this to Georgia's defense. How can I manipulate the defense the same way? I'm sure he'll find ways to do that get a couple drives. But I still do trust on this Georgia team. I think the run game is good enough where we're going to be able to lean on Auburn in that second half. So I am going to lean Georgia in this ball game. I do think it's by a couple possessions, but also in Death Valley, or not Death Valley, I don't know why I said that, in the Plains at Jordan-Hare. That's always a really tough place to play, so you're just never 100% sure going into a game like that. This game, I think, will be ugly, probably. So South Carolina goes to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They got to go to the real Death Valley. Now, all year, my thing with both of these teams has been very similar. With South Carolina, it's been, man, if they had an offensive line, they could be a great team because Lenore Sellers is a good quarterback because their wide receivers are pretty good. And if they could find a way to give Lenore Sellers time and give him a run game that's dependable, this is a guy that could put up Heisman numbers probably. But they haven't had that. They've had a horrible offensive line. I've been worried about this since the spring game for them. That's what's really held them back offensively. But LSU, and I was talking to a buddy of mine on Sunday about this, LSU has had the exact same issues. They have not been able to consistently run the ball. They have not been able to protect Garrett Nussmeier. And their offense has just not looked good in several of their bigger games this season. I mean, I think of whenever they played Florida, and Florida's defense, again, is good, but LSU had 13 offensive points. They had 20 total points. One of those touchdowns was from a pick six. And there were 4 other times that DJ Lagway threw an interception. Between those 4, they had a combined 13 points. You just got to be better than that offensively. So in this game, the buddy of mine I was talking to, he's a South Carolina fan. So shout out Anthony. And I was trying to give them some hope, and so I was saying, hey, I think they could do some things here because both offenses have been stagnant, but I do believe South Carolina has a better shot of being consistent in the explosive department. I do think they are a more explosive offense. It's going to be hard to do in Death Valley. It's a night game in Death Valley, the hardest place to play in all of football at all levels. So I just don't see a way that they go into Baton Rouge and they've come out with a win. If they do, this is how they're going to do it. They're going to be explosive. They're going to get a lot of chunk plays with Lenoris in the air and with his legs. And you're going to come out of this game going, wow, Lenoris Sellers is an insane football player. Or you'll go, South Carolina still sucks. And for South Carolina, and I've kind of hit on it a little bit for them this season, they have a brutal stretch. They needed to enter this stretch of their season 5-0. They're 3-2. If I remember correctly. And this stretch, let me see if I can pull it up. South Carolina's upcoming games, after going to number 11 LSU, they host number 6 Oklahoma, they host number 8 Alabama, they go to number 4 Ole Miss, they go to number 5 Texas A&M, Coastal Carolina, and then Clemson. However good they are at that point in the year, we don't know. So I don't think there's a lot of wins coming South Carolina's way. But if they do find a way to win this game, it's going to be from having an explosive offense and just being more explosive than LSU in this football game. Give me the LSU Tigers in that. This one is going to be, is Illinois fraudulent? Number 1 Ohio State goes number 17 Illinois. Illinois has been a weird story because they kind of came in with a lot of hype. They had a pretty high ranking. They were, I believe, a top 10 team at the time. They got absolutely drugged by Indiana. I know they had 63 dropped on them. I think it was 63-10. Ugly football game. Well, then Illinois bounces back. They host USC, and they find a way to win that game by, I think, 2. I think it was 34-32, something like that. Really great showing for them. Great job. But I think this Ohio State defense is legit. From what I've seen from this year, I would say that they are the best defense in the country at this point in the year. I think offensively, they've done about what they've needed to. It's felt like every game they still are just waiting to open it up offensively. And they haven't needed to. I think they've done a good job of protecting Julian Lewis. Sorry, not Julian Lewis. Julian Sayin. Julian Lewis is the Colorado quarterback. But Julian Sayin, they've really protected him this year. I mean, I watched a lot of that Washington football game of theirs and a lot of the Texas game. And they're letting him do a lot of halfback screens, wide receiver screens, throwing hitches, throwing drag routes, just a lot of easy completions, a lot of things that I try to run in video games. But they're not really giving them chances to really push the ball downfield. And when you have a wide receiver core that is as insane as theirs, you think they should push the ball a little bit more. But when you can throw a simple wide receiver screen and get 15 yards on it consistently, why be creative? I think they're kind of just saving Jeremiah Smith, saying, hey, we're going to need you late in the year. You better be ready then. So I don't think they've needed to do much offensively. Now, does Illinois put enough pressure on them that they need to open up the offense a little bit? And if they do, are they a well-oiled machine, or are they rusty because they're doing stuff they haven't done in games all season? I don't know. It is at Illinois, so you do have that home field advantage, so we'll see how much of a factor that plays. I still do think Ohio State finds a way to win, but I'll be hate watching them this weekend, fully rooting for Illinois to find a way to win this game. Gave me the Buckeyes in that one, unfortunately. But here's a game that I will pick with my heart. You know why? Because my heart hates the Alabama Crimson Tide. With everything in my being, I hate everything about them. I hate the fact that they call themselves the Crimson Tide because they say Roll Tide because they don't know how to spell elephant because an elephant is their mascot, but they say Roll Tide, which is so stupid, just like how Auburn goes, or we're the Tigers, but War Eagle. Like, pick an animal, pick a thing, pick a mascot. You can't just keep choosing whatever you want, saying random things. Alabama is so stupid in this. Be an elephant, be a freaking tidal wave. I don't care. Whatever you're going to be, just stick to something. Rant is the night over. But going into this game, I'm going to pick Missouri. And I'll tell you why. So I really want them to win. First of all, just being completely transparent about it. Missouri's had time to prepare for this game. So Alabama's last couple games, they had to go to Athens, Georgia. They found a way to win. They played well. But that's a tough game. That's a big game. Very next week, you got to come in very focused against a Vanderbilt team that they had a lot of focus on. They had been hearing all this trash talk for the past year. They started off ugly, found a way to come back and win and have a little bit of separation there. It's really hard to play 3 really good games in a row. You know what Missouri has done the last 2 weeks? While Alabama has had 2 big physical games, Missouri has played UMass and has had a bye week. And then they get Alabama coming in at home. I think Bo Pribula has been one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC this year. I think both throwing the ball and using his legs. I think he's playing way better than Drew Aller at Penn State. So I think a lot of Penn State fans are probably watching him going, holy crap, we have the wrong quarterback. We should have Bo. Bo Pribula playing great football, I think. Run game has been super good. I think the blocking has been very good. But Ahmad Hardy, man, is a great running back. And I know I've kind of talked about him before. Man, Ahmad Hardy is so much fun to watch. I mean, watch him against South Carolina, which is the best team they played up this point in the year has been South Carolina. So they played a lot of bad teams other than that. But Ahmad Hardy has just looked insane this season. I mean, so far he's at 103 carries for 730 yards already. It's about 7 yards a carry, I'm assuming. Let's see, 730 divided by 103 at 7.9 or 7.09. I mean, has 9 touchdowns. He's been balling. Bo Pribula has been, like I said, doing really well. Has been a little bit risky at times, but I like a quarterback that likes to kind of push the envelope a little bit. So I do think they're good enough to find a way to win. I think it being at home, I think the defense has been pretty sound for the most part. I would say the biggest difference in this game, if Alabama does win, is going to be probably Missouri's secondary not being able to hold up with the pass catchers of Alabama. Like I talked about earlier, their run game is starting to get going, but also more importantly, Ty Simpson is playing on another level right now. Not to be that guy and over-project a guy, but if I was an NFL team and I had to draft a quarterback that's playing college football this year, I might go Ty Simpson first, honestly. There's other guys, like Carson Beck has played well. I think Dante Moore has played a really good football, but Ty Simpson looks like the most. This guy can come in and he can play like a Jared Goff if we need him to, which sounds like an insult, but Jared Goff has been playing great football the past few years, especially. But I don't know. He's been really good this year. And if he keeps that up and the offense is able to have a good run game, they're able to protect him. And obviously we know what their weapons have. I think there's a really good chance that, Alabama could make a deep run this year, but I do hope they would lose several games. I'm probably going to pick against them other times this season. I can go ahead and tell you that. But I just really, really want Missouri to win this game. So I'm going to pick Missouri in this one. So if they win, I can tell everyone, haha, I was right. And if Alabama wins, I'll go, hey, they were the favorite. Alabama won anyway. They were projected to win. So, what are you bragging about? Just kidding. That would be a loser's mentality. And if you're like that, you're wrong. Be better. But give me the Missouri Tigers to take down the Tide, please, because I hate Alabama. And I seem to hide it pretty good, I would say, huh? What do y'all think? So I'll tell you what's funny about this next game. This, out of all the games this weekend, this is very low down the totem pole for me of games that I'm excited about, but it's also the highest ranked matchup this weekend. Number 3, Oregon is hosting number 7, Indiana. Now, I would say I'm not super excited about it because I feel like this is when it reminds me of a Scooby-Doo episode. You know, Scooby-Doo, there's a monster, some bad guy, and then at the end, they lift up the mask, and they're like, oh, it's so-and-so. I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. I think Indiana is pretending to be a really good football team. Obviously, they destroyed Illinois. They looked great. I just think they're frauds. I think they're not a top 10 team. I don't think they're a national championship contender. I don't think they're a team that's going to make a run in the playoffs. Now, I would say they're better than they were last year from what I've seen, but I think this is going to be very similar to a couple of their bigger games last year where you could tell that they played to win close, to lose close, not to win. And I think Oregon has been probably the most complete team up to this point in the year, if not definitely top 3, which they're ranked 3rd in the country. So no duh, Andrew. But I think Oregon's a really good team. I think Dante Moore is playing a really good football. I think just their offense has been explosive. It's been efficient. I think their defense has been very good. Dan Lanning is a great defensive mind. So I think that they find a way to win and make it not close. But then I think that Indiana climbs back in this ball game. Give me like a 34, I'll say 34-24, something like that, where they're maybe down or 10, and then in the fourth quarter they score 2 more touchdowns and make it look a little bit better. But I just feel like this is going to be a Scooby-Doo moment. Now, we'll see. And if they go into Oregon and they win, I will let all of y'all know that I was wrong, that Indiana's legit. But until they do that, you're just going to have to prove me Indiana. I'm not going to give you benefit of the doubt. I will give a team like Oregon the benefit of the doubt, but you kind of got to earn it with me. But give me the Oregon Ducks. This is an exciting one for me. Red River rivalry. Just kidding. It's Red River shootout. And if you call it anything else, you're a pansy. I don't know if can you say that word? I don't know if that's a word that's been banned. I don't keep up with the trends. But you're not a tough guy if you don't say Red River shootout. But anyway, I think this is a fun game. Now, as of a couple hours ago, I got a notification from ESPN saying that John Mateer is listed as probable in this game. Now, a couple weeks ago, he broke his hand against Auburn. He continued to play the entire game. He had a successful surgery. They said 2 to 3 weeks on his recovery. And when he first had the surgery, people were saying, oh, crap, this man's going to be out half the year. And they have a really tough stretch coming up. But he is probably going to be back for this game. I think that's going to be huge. I think in this game, obviously Texas didn't have a good showing last week. Offense looked bad. Offensive line especially looked really bad. Defense just could not stop that Florida offense that could not get anything going all year. So you think, is Florida magically a better offense now? Or is Texas's defense just overrated? Or what's going on? But I think Oklahoma, there's a little bit of a revenge factor here. I do think it's a high-scoring game. Give me like a 35-31 Oklahoma. This rivalry seems to really go back and forth every year. And I just think Texas dominated it last year. And a lot of that, and it even looked more dominant than it really was. But there were a lot of times, I think they had 3 or 4 scoring drives that they got the ball in plus territory on Oklahoma's side of the field, where they didn't have to go very far to score. But in this, I think Texas's offense seems to be somewhat in shambles. They just haven't executed at a high level, especially on the line. And I think I really like Oklahoma's defense. I think Arch Manning, who hasn't played like a great quarterback this year, going against a great mind like Brent Venables is going to be very tough for him. And I think John Mateer just has a dog in him. And he's going to find a way to win this game. So not a ton to say there. I just think Oklahoma's going to win this game. And I think John Mateer being back is probably the difference. Now, if he doesn't play, it's going to get a little bit more scary. I think it's Michael Hawkins is his name, the backup quarterback. He played some last year, very mobile quarterback. So if he comes in and he plays well, he could do enough with his legs where maybe they don't have to do a ton in the passing game, or maybe he's gotten better as a passer, I don't know. But he probably hasn't had a lot of time in Arbuckle's system. Obviously, John Mateer came over from Washington State with Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator. He's a lot more comfortable in that system. But we'll see. I do pick Oklahoma in this game, though. Do think it's a little bit of a shootout. 35-31. I say that, but also I don't know if Texas can score that many points. But it just feels like, I feel like this game is so much more fun when both teams are in 30-plus range. I mean, there's a couple years ago, it was just a super fun matchup. So I'm hoping that's what kind of goes. I'll stick with that prediction just because I hope that's what it ends up being. But if this game does get lopsided a little bit, I would lean more of the Oklahoma win with the lopside than Texas would. Last game of the night, the Florida Gators, the trash Florida Gators at number 5 Texas A&M. Okay, so I called them trash. I'll give them their credit. I'll give them their flowers. You beat a top 10 ranked team. You beat a team that lost their only Power 4 opponent. It is, as of this being posted, it will be October 10th. And Texas still has not beaten a Power 4 opponent. Texas has only beaten San Jose State, Sam Houston, and what was the other one? I think Utah State or something like that. They basically played just 3 horrible teams in a row. But yeah, we'll give you some credit. We'll give you some credit for Florida for beating a team that hasn't beaten anyone all year. So that seems like a backhanded compliment. That's because that's what it is. Congratulations that you recognize that. But anyway, going on to the Florida Texas A&M game, my question is the Florida offense legit? Is what we saw last week what we will see the rest of the year, or was it a fluke? Now, what's tough for them is they're again going against a really good defense. I would say Texas A&M's defense is better than Texas's, I would say. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, yeah, I feel confident in that. I feel like A&M just has a really good defense. Now, they looked It looked bad against Notre Dame, but I do think that they've looked really good since then. I think they've played really good football. I think they have a great three-headed monster at running back. Marcel Reed has been very explosive typically. He has done a lot of amazing things with his legs. I think when you look at Florida, DJ Lagway has played a lot of bad football throughout his career, and then he had one good game. That game is currently the outlier. I'm not going to give you benefit of the doubt until you show a trend of doing that. Having one random good game is great, but let's see if you can string these along. And if you can, if the next couple weeks you continue to play at a high level, then as a Georgia fan, I'm going to be worried about the cocktail party. But for right now, you haven't shown that consistently. Now, I think what they need to do is what I've been telling them all year, and that they did against Texas. I think they need to lean on their run game. I think they need to feed Jaden Ball. I know their backup Jackson was hurt last week, so I think his last name was Clark, maybe, their third-string running back who got a lot of carries. He looked really good for them as well. But if you can lean on the run game, don't make DJ Lagway do too much. Keep it just simple reads, things that are short, the occasional deep bomb because you can. I think that's their route to making this game competitive or maybe finding a way to win. But Texas A&M is a hard place to play, and it is very loud. I think they have a really good offense and a really good defense this year, and those together is just going to be a really hard team to beat. So we'll see with that one, but I will pick Texas A&M Aggies in this game. I think it's going to be around, let me think for a second. I'll say 31-17. I'll say 28-17. I'll put it a little bit close. Or do I want to say that? I'll stick with 31-17. I feel like it's going to be about like that. I do think Florida scores a couple touchdowns, has a couple good drives, but overall, I think that Texas A&M controls the game and always feels like they should win this game, and they find a way to just have control, especially late in that football game. But yeah, give me the Aggies in that game. Thank y'all so much for listening to this. If you're still here, let me know. Shoot me a text, comment on the video. Make sure to drop a like. Make sure to hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. Leave a review if you're on Spotify. Thank you for listening to this. I am, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate anyone who listens to this full thing and just listen to me blabber on about college football for about an hour now. So y'all are the real ones. If you listen this far, sorry for the break. I will try to go back to more of a 2 pods per week model, but it just kind of depends on life when you're working full time. That has nothing to do with a college football podcast, and you got a wife and kid. Sometimes it's hard schedule wise, but we'll find a way. But everyone, y'all live long and prosper. I will remind everyone here that it has been 1,097 days since the Florida Gators beat the Georgia Bulldogs in football, and we are 22 days until Jacksonville. Y'all have a good one. God bless.